Welcome to this demonstration video sponsored by the California Department of Education. This video covers how to assign and check test settings in the TA interface for both the California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress, or CAASPP, and the English Language Proficiency Assessments for California, or ELPAC. Students with specific learning needs may require accessibility resources, which are also called test settings, to be assigned to them on CAASPP and ELPAC tests. While test settings need to be assigned by testing coordinators in the Test Operations Management System, or TOMS, it is important that, right before testing begins, the test administrator or test examiner, referred to as a TA or TE, checks if students have the correct test settings assigned. For all summative assessments, TAs and TEs can only check to make sure the test settings are correct, but cannot change them in the moment. For the initial ELPAC, CAASPP, and ELPAC interim assessments and practice and training tests, TAs and TEs can actually change test settings for individual sessions. We'll cover that later in this video. If you are not sure what test settings students should have assigned, you can contact your site or district testing coordinator, who should be able to provide this information or demonstrate how to check test settings in advance in TOMS. If a student has the incorrect settings for a summative assessment, the TA or TE should not approve the student and contact the site or district testing coordinator to have the test settings changed in TOMS. Let's look at what this functionality looks like in the TA interface. During an active test session, once students log on and select a test, select the Approvals tab for a list of students waiting to be approved. In the See Details column, students with no test settings assigned will show Default, and students with test settings will show as Custom. Select the View button, represented with an eye icon, to open the Test Settings window to see details. In the Test Settings window, you can view the various settings for the student. If the student settings are correct, you can select Set and Approve to let that student begin testing. Again, for the summative assessments, the TA or TE will not be able to change any of the fields on this page. The only exception is that if the student has the Turn Off Any Universal Tools designated support turned on, the TA or TE will be able to toggle universal tools on or off, even for the summative assessments. When test settings are assigned in TOMS, it takes approximately 2 hours for those changes to be reflected for the student in the TA interface. For the initial ELPAC, CAASPP and ELPAC interim assessments, and practice and training tests, TAs and TEs can make changes to the student's test settings prior to testing. When changes are made to the test settings in this way, those changes will only apply for that single testing session. For the initial ELPAC, only designated supports can be assigned through the TA interface. Since accommodations require an individualized education plan, or IEP, or a Section 504 plan, these test settings can only be set in TOMS. This functionality serves the purpose of making sure new students, whose needs may not yet be fully known, can quickly get new designated supports if needed, as determined by the trained test examiner. For interim assessments and practice and training tests, any test setting can be changed or assigned, including designated supports and accommodations, even if the student doesn't have an IEP or Section 504 plan. This functionality provides educators with extra flexibility so students can practice with different resources on different types of tests. For one of these applicable assessments, when the TA or TE accesses the test settings window, simply find the test setting field and make the desired changes. For instance, under text-to-speech, use the drop-down menu to select passages and items to turn on text-to-speech for the student, and select the Set or Set and Approve buttons to save the change. Now you know how to check and assign test settings in the TA interface. For a complete list and other information about test settings, please visit bit.ly/CA-matrix. Thanks for watching.